I almost lost my entire business.
I will blame guests 100% of the time.
And I was completely wrong. And then I just got embarrassed in front of everybody. You guys have the power because an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
I used to host in Philadelphia, and it was a combination of city regulations and violent crime that caused me to pull out of the city. Some of you know that story. Now, before I pulled out of Philadelphia, I had a chance to meet Theron, who handles short-term rental regulations all over the country, maybe even internationally one day, who knows, but he was a super vital part of saving Detroit from their own regulations. Philadelphia might be suffering a different fate, which is really sad to see because I know plenty of hosts that deserve to host in Philadelphia. And because hotel lobbyists and just bad media are painting our industry in such a negative light, hosts are now losing money after investing good money into their business. So I invited Theron to Dallas. He made the trip. Thank you so much for coming. And we're going to talk about STR regulations. We're going to talk about the 3 things that you can do to stop regulations from destroying your hometown. So that way, maybe you can keep hosting, unlike, the sad stories like Philadelphia. Let's go. Welcome back, YouTube world. Theron, thank you so much for coming to the YouTube channel. Introduce yourself, please, because to some of us, you're famous, but to the rest of the YouTube world, you may not be known yet.
You are absolutely correct. And advocacy, we want to get that known as much as possible. And that's really what I'm all about. So again, my name is Theron Lewis, and I'm the founder of STR Hero. It's a nonprofit organization, and our goal is to protect the lives of communities by promoting and defending the short-term rental industry. The main piece of that is advocacy, because the issue with short-term rentals right now is there's unfair regulation happening in tons of places, and we want to stop that.
And he's right. Advocacy is a big deal because the only people currently pushing any legislation are the well-funded hotels trying to ban us here and push us out of the box, per se. So somebody's got to stand up for hosts, and advocacy and public initiatives like this might be our best chance. But on that topic, let's talk about the bans. Let's talk about why cities are banning STR in the first place. Let's talk about the narrative that hotels are pushing. What is your opinion?
So, this is really one of the, why is the answer that the question that I get all the time. And that's what most people don't necessarily understand. And it's a very simple set of reasons. What we see is that it's an awareness issue. And specifically, that's the best way to boil it down, because what you hear all the time is that short-term rentals are causing affordable housing issues. They're causing a lot of neighborhood disturbances and in some cases crime and things of that nature. And while these are things that, let's put it like this, there's things that happen with hotels that are in that same category. There are going to be bad actors in industries dealing with housing in general, but the vast majority do not cause those problems. And the issue is the governments are very connected with, like you said, the hotel lobbies and other powers that be that don't really want short-term rentals to be in the space. And they're hearing all of the bad actors, let's put it like that. They're hearing the issues from all the bad actors, and they're also hearing this from neighbors that are affected by this, which, we feel for them as well. But they're not hearing from the 90% of short-term rental hosts that are actually doing a great job. And because of that imbalance, and they're only hearing the negatives, they're thinking that it's much more prevalent within the industry than it actually is. And when they're making decisions that are affecting all of us, and we're not a part of that conversation, that hurts us.
I'll say that there probably is plenty to blame hosts for, or the industry for. This is the part where it kind of gets sticky. So I used to do business in Fort Worth with my newspaper business, and I rented some hotel rooms for my guys to stay and work. We were looking for budget stuff. There's an intersection at the 820 loop in Fort Worth and 35, and this is super just dingy hotels that are right there. And it's bad. The people who stay there, a lot of people are paying such cheap rates that there's a lot of drug use and stuff. So hotels, especially cheap ones, have these problems. They're real. Now the thing though is that he's confined into this 4 hotel structure that there's no families next door. There's no houses. They're not in apartments. And so I think the reason why people are crying wolf so much is because in the case of Philadelphia, where these people were breaking in, there's a gang of 40 kids that started breaking into Airbnbs, and a lot of mine, and causing trouble. And they're breaking into apartment complexes, and the neighbors are normal people. So I'm not going to say that it's Airbnb's fault that the gang existed, right? That's the thing that I think needs to start to be kind of addressed. these kids found this apartment complex because of short-term rentals, but they still chose to commit crimes, right? They still chose to break in. They still chose to do stuff like that. Now, where I think we're lacking is a lot of times when we try to call the cops and say there's an issue, police really don't respond. Now, there's probably an issue with crime in general in places like Philadelphia. The sergeant didn't call us back about these break-ins until these kids murdered somebody. That is a sad story about the state of Philadelphia, not the state of short-term rentals, right? So I do think that there are like legitimate issues, but I don't think that they're, how would you say, insurmountable. I think, unfortunately, the industry is still young enough and police are not equipped enough to understand the nuances between like tenant issues and like short-term rental issues that a lot of times police just don't respond appropriately to stuff like that too. I think that's an issue.
Right.
But the housing crisis thing, there's a study that just came out. I was about to read it so I could do, I'm gonna probably do a video on this. I'm gonna study this, but rent increases have skyrocketed since COVID, and it's not short-term rentals. It's the fact that people don't want to have roommates anymore after COVID. People are like, I don't want to live with anyone. And Elon Musk just like traded Twitter about the reason why the housing market's still in a bubble and hasn't yet popped is because people can't afford to sell their houses. Everything's so expensive, they can't go buy another house or move into a place where the rent's super expensive. They just rather hold onto their property and not have to pay capital gains, not have to worry about stuff.
And it really comes down to the industry, the short-term rental industry maturing with regards to working with the government, because these are all things, like you said, we agree that they are solvable. And I'll actually give you a really good case study of Columbus, Ohio. And I'll be brief about this, but the thing about Columbus is that they have what's called a 3-strike rule. And this is, I think, a big step in helping to regulate things with regards to conduct. Now, will it solve everything? No, laws generally never solve everything. But this is an example of, hey, there's 3 strikes. If there's a bad actor host, that there's been 3 severe issues that have to be reported by an actual like an official, like a police officer has to come to a house and they have to see, okay, something bad happened, go record it with the city, that causes a strike, not a neighbor complaint or anything like that. 3 strikes, and then that property is liable to get taken off of the platform. Now, again, this is a huge step in the government working together with us so that we can solve these problems that obviously we want to solve, right? And this is what happens with every industry. It always starts off where, things grow rapidly, and then there's some sort of, you realize that there's holes in the algorithm or things of that nature. Not a literal algorithm, but there's holes in the matrix or whatever, where there's bad things that happen, things slip through, and then the government and the industry work together to put correct regulations in place that actually help all of us, because we want to protect our neighborhoods too. We don't want our neighbors mad at us. I mean, that neighbor could be the next client for a management company, right? I mean, that's what we all want here. We want people to love short-term rentals outside of the industry just like we do inside. And I think that's really the big answer with what you just said. And we can do it, It just takes more connection with the industry and the government. And that's a big piece of what, we do and what, even going back to my issue in Detroit, that's the big thing that I did to solve that problem, that immediate problem. And it was, hey, we had, and just to kind of back up, so the audience knows, I almost lost everything because I'm a short-term rental brand owner as well. I almost lost my entire business due to a ban in Detroit, Michigan. And it came completely out of nowhere. I did all the right, quote unquote, research. There was no regulation. The mayor was in an Airbnb commercial online. I'm like, this could get any better than this, right? And I was completely wrong. Literally, I got in my stride, and Detroit was about to ban my short-term rental business in about a month's time. And I saw a news report, and I just went through the stages of grief. And I was just like, okay, well, but I guess I stopped before acceptance, because I was like, okay, I have nothing else to lose here. I'm going to fight this. And the big thing was connecting the industry in Detroit to the government. And that did everything that I needed it to do to stop that ban. And now, like, I have city council members in my phone. Like, if they want to propose something, they know us. They know about sharing Detroit, and we're at that table now.
Yes, you probably heard that by now Dallas has banned Airbnb, and that's the beginning of the process. So even though this video has been uploaded a little bit late, it's still relatively early in our fight to make sure that hosts can host in Dallas. So you should all continue to watch this video, and I'm gonna give you guys some advice over the next couple of months on what we can do, because right now they still have to vote on lots of stuff, like how are they gonna enforce? What are they gonna fine you? Like all that kind of stuff. This still could fall flat on its face. If you listen to Theron talk about his experiences with Detroit, they banned it, then reversed it in Detroit. So don't be scared, guys, but let's get back to the video.
So it's really about us being a part of the conversation, because all we've been at this point is pretty much left out.
Yeah.
And that's a dang shame.
That's true. And I like the 3 strike rule concept because it forces the city to look at why things are happening. And and I guess I'll say it more clearly. I think it's the guests. Like I was saying before, this gang in Philadelphia, or like the situations that we've had here in Dallas, it's the guest, right? And what makes it look like the operator's fault is people are expecting operators to operate at some high level of business acumen, right? And it's their fault for letting things happen. But remember, this is a sharing platform, peer-to-peer, low barrier to entry.
Right.
You don't have to have a business degree to do Airbnb.
Exactly.
Right. So it's really hard to expect the average Joe to have the level of preventative acumen risk assessment that they want, where the only reason why the risk exists is because bad humans exist. It's not the industry's fault. I will blame guests 100% of the time.
Oh, no. Guests need to get there. Like, they need to be blamed. Like, we need to talk to Airbnb about even more ways to make sure that these guests just can't be on the platform anymore. I think they've done certain things, right? But
they have a wider net of guest screening now since the summer release that just came out.
Yeah.
Which we'll be doing a video on soon. So,
fantastic.
Steps, baby steps, right?
Yeah.
Baby steps. But let's cut to the chase. There are 3 things that you can do to prevent bans from hitting your city. Now, you might already have legislation in the pipeline in your town. You might already be the victim of bad legislation like Philadelphia, but even at that point, the hatchet isn't buried. You can reverse legislation. Theron's done it before, so it's possible. Now, these 3, we're going to call them techniques, just because this is a YouTube video, are kind of part of a package deal that Theron will use to attack legislation all at the same time, but all 3 are individually actionable. So whichever one speaks to you, I encourage you to pick up that torch first and pick up the other 2 when you can get to it. But number 1, we're going to talk about associations, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'd say that's the most important one. If you can just make a good dent in that, because I do believe that it becomes a collective effort, you can do so much with the association. So what that actionable step is join an association that's already existing, or create your own if it's not there. And this is how you find that. Search on Google, your city or state short-term rental association. And if you don't see anything on the first page that says association or alliance, you don't have one. And at that point, well, I'll actually stay on the point of joining. If you do see this, that's great, because all you need to do is see where you can fit in. I want you to be someone that's actually volunteering and, again, taking action. You can email them on their website and say, hey, tell me the skinny on what's going on with regulations right now. Where are we and how can I help? It's that simple. If they're an active association, they're going to get back with you and tell you the lowdown, and then they're going to tell you, hey, maybe there's nothing going on, which I doubt, meaning there's nothing that you could help with. But I mean, there probably is stuff that you could help with, even if they're just trying to put on an event. It could be an event that helps make people better hosts. That's a big piece of what associations can be really useful for. So they can say, hey, we're throwing an event. We would love to have somebody, bring up a house manual that's worked really well for them to help keep out those bad guests that we keep talking about, and help keep them out. That's never 100% foolproof, but you could be that person that just shares your house manual, and then maybe you even get to talk about it at the meeting. And there's so much that comes from that. You don't even notice it until later on, but that's literally how we will win these battles. You have to have some sort of body that can communicate with the government, and just having a community and doing something in the community will help a lot. So that's one thing. Now, if you don't have that, you want to create your own association, and it's way easier than it sounds. I know that sounds like you need to go to the courthouse or something and file some documents. Not at all. Simply make a Facebook page. Call it Your City Short-Term Rental Association. The beautiful part about this is most of our groups in short-term rentals right now are on Facebook groups, right? The local groups. You could literally join an existing group as that page and say, hey, we just started the short-term rental association in this city. Like the page, and we're going to have an event to help you guys with whatever you guys want help with. What do you guys want help with? First of all, if you're a host already, you probably know kind of what's going on, let's say in the city. You've heard other people in these Facebook groups say, hey, you know, I've had some really bad guests. Anybody have a house manual? Or, man, where can I find a good place to do rental arbitrage? Like, where's, you know, the rents are so high over here. All of these are problems you can solve. So if you, even just stopping at making a Facebook page takes you 5 minutes. If you say, I don't want to do this anymore, this isn't for me, you can pass that on to somebody. That's the beautiful piece about it. It's the easiest website you could ever create. And again, speaking to your local group, your Facebook group about that, that's where you get your people from. You could host a online meetup, or you could host an in-person meetup just to chat with people. You don't even necessarily have to have a topic. That's going to draw people, because most people in this industry, especially starting off, they don't get a chance to meet other hosts. There isn't a host meetup happening. So people love to meet with like-minded folks in their industry and talk shop. So you could do something as simple as that, and that's going to go a long way. So I could go on with that because there's so many benefits, but just start there, and like the benefits will follow after that.
Yeah. And there's something to be said about the group too, because two heads are better than one, that whole adage. The city, if they're trying to pass bans, has heard of problems or believes that there are problems, and they want those problems fixed, or they want to get rid of you for the problem.
Right.
Now, I think it's important that any short-term rental group takes time to seriously sit down and go, what are the grievances against us? What are we being accused of? How do we solve these things?
Exactly.
Because if somebody's like, oh, I prevent that all the time by XYZ thing. Like, you know, for example, Minute, they just came out with smoke detection in their device, and occupancy monitoring to see if there's too many people, and they even have an outdoor one. So something like Minute has like a lot of solutions, and maybe a lot of hosts don't know that. And devices like that have prevented parties, and the ability to prevent a party is probably one of the big things that cities want as a way to control their issue.
Exactly.
But it could be other stuff like trash. Sometimes we have to do like daily trash runs just to check all of our houses to make sure that people did their job with trash. So now we have enough houses and we do a trash run. Now, here's the thing. A group could like all say, hey, here's all of our houses. We're going to group share the cost of a guy to do a route and pick up trash every single day, just as a firefighter, right?
Exactly.
And so the group could come in together with like a little bit of money, and they all can protect it, as a group, protect the asset, which is their operations, by sharing the cost.
I have a fantastic story to share about that. So what you just said, I don't know if you're like Oracle or something, I don't know what's going on right now, but you hit gold, because Sean, in Philly, somebody has done that and built a business out of it. And that's from working with the community, just as you said.
Yeah, Jason, right? Trash Trader?
Exactly, Trash Trader. And it literally started as, hey, okay, the city is having a problem with us in trash. Guys, tell me what your issues are. If you got a lot of trash, I'm gonna solve this problem. Let me know where you are in the city. I'm gonna create a route. I'm gonna go pick up this trash. It started with him doing that himself, and he's built this into a startup that like he's sponsored the association. Like he's getting funding. He's like, things are happening. Do you see what I'm saying? And like, again, it's one of those things where when I talk about it, we talk about the short-term things and things you can do right now, but this is such a big opportunity for anybody who takes action in the long term. If you are somebody like Sean and myself who are out here thinking big and want to win in the industry, not just thinking about next year, I'm talking like 5 years from now, maybe 10 years from now, and you want to be a leader, you have so much of a chance to have a sphere of influence if you take the initiative, start a group, do the small things and help your community out. Because that's how Trashmitter got started. That's how I got into this industry on the advocacy space. And this is, it's I mean, not to just keep it on a business term, but it's almost like free marketing. If you're out here solving problems and people know you, that is one of the best ways to grow your business. So, and it's absolutely free to do. So I just had to chime in on that. There's success stories already around from things that, Sean is talking about and what people have done in these communities. So it literally starts with what I just said. You just take one small step and the possibilities are endless.
Yeah, create a group, Talk about the problems, fix the problems.
Exactly. That's what we're here for, you know?
But what's number 2? What is that?
I know, right? Look, number 1 was, we almost just want to end on number 1 now, right? We were on a roll with that. So, you know, there's 2 more, and the thing is, number 2 is important too. And but here's the thing. We talked about associations first, right? It kind of bleeds into this, but let's say you want to be, okay, hey, somebody's doing an association. I want to be the person that knows a city council person. I want to be like, have the direct line with the government. So I know if they're about to put some regulations out, or I can automatically have some sort of influence. That's the next step. Have a connection between the industry and the government. And I'll keep it super simple here. All it is having a connection with the decision makers.
Hey guys, more resources for you. If you want to know a lot about this ban in Dallas, watch my best friend Sean Ray's YouTube channel. He's a Dallas-based real estate agent with a lot of skin in the game because he's been doing Airbnb for years, like me. So many of my friends have too, so we all care about this. Now, that video is mostly spot on, and as a owner, I think he does a really good job for owners. The arbitrage world is a little more soft, thankfully. It's really harsh for property owners in Dallas, but those of us that do arbitrage, it's a little more easy because we do a lot of apartments in the suburbs, first off. You can still own in the suburbs and you'll be fine. Like commercially zoned areas, you can do Airbnb. So some of our properties are apartments in commercially zoned. Now, what that means, we still yet to find out what the exact legislation's going to be. See, for example, in Philadelphia, commercial mixed use 3 or greater is the area that you can do Airbnb in. There's like multiple versions of residential zones, and then there's commercial mixed use 1 and 2 that you can't do Airbnb in Philly. We have yet to find out what the exact zoning requirements will be in Dallas. So there will be some areas where you could do maybe multifamily and something that is partially single family, or it could be completely banned in like hotel zones only. It could be something weird like that. For my friends and I in Dallas, for the ones that are selling their properties now, because yes, in these areas that Airbnb is impossible, they're cashing out their properties, hopefully as close to the top as possible and keeping their cash. We're going to put that on to multifamily. I'm getting a group of friends together. We're going to cash out. We're going to buy a bunch of multifamily where we can in and near Dallas and make some money on Airbnb still, because all of those guests have to go somewhere, don't they? They can't stay in houses, but they can stay nearby, and we're going to try to own those multifamily buildings. Now, I don't have a lot of information on that. This is something that I'm coming up with quick, because as things move quick, you need to move quicker, right? That's how the world works. So if you want more information because you own properties in Dallas and you are selling, hit me up on Instagram, and I might be able to get you some resources on that too. So either my Airbnb automated or my risk and reward Instagram. I will be doing a bigger video on that once I have it all squared away and organized. My ADHD self is moving kind of quick, so thanks for your patience. Anyway, back to the video.
And it's simple. It's literally dealing with city council members. That's what most problems in the US are governed by. It's the city council in the city, and you want to just be known by them. And that's as simple as going to one of their frequent events that they have in the city. So a lot of people don't know this, but city council members, I almost want to say it's required by them to have events frequently to just meet with people in different industries and talk about problems. It's like a town hall. And literally every month, there's at least one city council public event where you can go and shake that city council person's hand. It's super casual. It's like meeting up with somebody at Starbucks. They'll have these at coffee houses. I remember in Detroit, I went to one of these meetups, and the city council person gave me their direct number. That was the first number that I got from a city council person. Literally texting them like stuff, and they're responding back. Like this, it's not as hard as it seems. You don't need to spend a ton of money on a lobbyist for, unless it's a very serious issue in a big city. But you could start that now. Literally just go to your website, go to the website for your city, and they have what's called a city clerk. It's like the secretary for the city. You can say, hey, what events are coming up for the city council people in my city? They will literally send you the links of like, hey, there's this event, here's the flyer, go ahead and show up. If you want to sign up to the city council person's email list, you'll get that stuff directly to your email. But you could do this in 5 minutes. You could email your city clerk, and either today or tomorrow, they're going to hit you back with things that you can go to, and you'll be welcomed. Like, this is where advocacy and a lot of things happen, but people don't really know about that unless they're, been in some other industry where things are going on. I've seen people in the auto industry. I've seen people in like the more traditional real estate industry. I've seen people in like the contracting industry, they'll show up and they'll talk to these city council people and they'll tell them about neighborhood problems, and that stuff matters. And it's one of the easiest ways to connect. So if you want to connect with the government yourself right now, you could do that in 5 minutes. Go to your city website, email the county clerk, tell me what events are going on for my city council people, and just show up to one of them. Simple as that.
That reminds me of Sean Ray, my real estate friend here in Dallas. As soon as he found out Dallas was under the gun, he all of a sudden decided to start making some phone calls, make some friends in city council,
Bam.
Find out who are the ones who are anti-short-term rentals, who are the ones who are pro-short-term rentals, try to start creating a dialogue between them all, and try to influence the ones that were like not friendly to become more friendly. Try to find out where the weak points were and patch that up. It's really cool to see.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big thing. Now, I have to add a caveat here. Initially, I'm speaking about actual things that almost everybody can do. If you are in a mid to large size city, it's definitely something that you want to consider to take extra steps. Meaning, if you're in a mid to large size city and there's regulation about to be passed, that's a severe situation where in our recommendation, you'll want to look for a lobbyist's services, not a attorney, a lobbyist. They're the folks that, let's put it like this, they allow you to make friends with those different city council people. And this is something that, I mean, Shine, I know we talked about this, and because we're in Dallas right now, this is an ongoing issue. And I can definitely see people saying that, oh, well, why do I need a lobbyist? And I can understand the reasonings behind it. From what we've seen, this is the key to knocking things out in a mid to large size city. If you're under the gun, you don't need a lobbyist if you're just trying to get started and make connections and there's nothing pending. But if they're trying to get you out of here, like right now, that allows you to make the connections the right way. And the way we see it is like going on the lawyer side. If you were, if you were in trouble with the law unfairly and you were trying to defend yourself in court, you wouldn't want to go and try and do that by yourself. You'd want to have a attorney to be that, let's say, liaison, speak for you, and then also they have connections that they can utilize to get the ball over the finish line. And going back to Detroit, we had bumped our heads so many times. So I have actually a pretty funny story. And I'm gonna send a photo so you can like see me at this meeting. This was one of the city council meetups that I was talking about that I went to, and I was thinking, okay, this is right in the beginning. I'm like, all right, I'm at the meeting. Okay, we got to raise some money, pay for this lobbyist. And we did that. What it did is and we didn't think about it at first, but we found out that it showed the council members that, oh, this is a real industry, an industry that's paid for representation that, and I hate to say it like this, but just with the way that money moves politics in a lot of ways, they paid for representation. These are folks that could benefit me and be worthwhile to stand, behind in the future. They'll be able to help maybe, raise money, donate to a campaign. They're a sizable industry, which means they have a lot of people, which means that, okay, it's proven that these people care about this and they'll vote for me if I back these people. I say unfortunately, just because I'm like, well, why? We didn't say anything different. Like, why does this matter? But that changed everything in Detroit. And that was the first time we realized, oh, this is what the lobbyist is for. And ever since then, whenever it's been a mid to large size city and there's like, we're under the gun, we always check, hey, did you guys reach with a political consultant? That's another name for them. But basically that, like getting that engaged, it basically makes them take us more seriously. Just like those hotel lobbies. And we keep saying hotel lobby, right? Emphasis on lobby. That's a big reason why they get taken seriously, is because of that. And you know who else is also hires lobbyists? Certain neighborhoods and neighborhood associations. And actually in Dallas, that was one of the groups that they just cut some of this out. This would be more deep into Dallas, but those folks, a lot of them, they're older, retired. They have a bunch of time on their hands and enough money on their hands to just focus on this. And they hired a lobbyist, and they just were beating the industry up in Dallas because of that. So basically, we'll say fighting fire with fire allowed us to be on the even playing field and for them to take us seriously. So that's the reason why, in our experience, we see that being so important. And if you're in a small city, thankfully, you don't have to worry about that, because there's just not there's just not enough of an economy or a size of an economy to support an actual full-time lobbyist. So you literally can just go with like a friend of a friend or somebody that they know that, and so you could do it for free, theoretically. But in the middle large size city, that's one of the tools that they use to shut us out, is that they're putting money into this, getting their lobbying firms to basically, badmouth us, and we don't get to have our say back. So it's really interesting, but that's definitely made a huge difference in what we've been doing.
Yeah, wild. Good feat. So make friends with your politicians, or hire somebody to be friends with your politician.
Basically, and that was the best way to put it. Guys, fast forward to what he said, okay? So you can remember what to actually do.
Summarize. Now, I know your third one has to do with the channels, and I've worked with Airbnb and VRBO on the marketing side, talktobooking.com, and a lot of times they don't want to talk about when they donate towards initiatives like this. They kind of want to keep their names out of the news themselves. They want to support us hosts. They want to be helpful for us, but VRBO wouldn't let me say, oh, they wrote a check to the city for this amount. Like, even if I knew that information, they would not want me to say it publicly, because they have invested interest in us hosting, but they don't want to get caught in the crossfire. But so it's a little I know about your third one, and I'll let you take it from there.
Oh, well, you hit the nail on the head with it is definitely a interesting situation that's not just blanket, extremely just clear. And a lot of people, unfortunately, have had bad experiences working with the platforms in advocacy, because they feel, okay, hey, Airbnb, VRBO, these guys are billion-dollar companies. They're going to help us. They're going to save us, right? I want you guys to know, no, that's not how that works. But it's actually good for you. The power is in our hands, and that's good, because we retain the power when, the regulations change, or just in general, we retain that power. So we're not beholden to any platforms. Now, the reason why that is because with the way real estate works, it's all about the local city, and it's all in the city. The local city cares about the neighborhoods and the local denizens there. So they have the power, even though Airbnb can hire the best lobbyists to try and fight different things. But here's the useful part about the platforms and why we recommend this. Or I'll speak for myself, but I think we're generally on the same page. Why I recommend this, and it's because they're not useful with regards to saving you, but they're useful as an ally to give you two big things. One, they can give you information on what they're doing behind the scenes, but you'll be able to get information about what's going on that you keep internally. And that's really helpful for info. The second thing is they're going to help you, and I'm going to bring it all the way back to the first one, build your audience. So this is free marketing for you. And that's what I like about them the most. They're not really great for advocacy, we'll say, and I'm not trying to step on any toes. I hope nobody from Airbnb's policy team is watching too intently, but I mean, I think we're on the same page. They're extremely helpful. I want to shout out to them on this for growing your audience and helping you build your association. When you need to stop a ban, you can tell Airbnb, hey, we're going to have an event on coming together to stop this ban. Can you please blast this event to all of the hosts in the city that have signed up the policy emails? That's basically everybody. They'll blast it, and that's free promo for you, and that allows you to go from 0 to 100 with regards to your group. And to give a little case study with Choi, I grew my association from like 5 people when I first was reaching out to 200 people in less than 3 months. And most of that happened in about a month and a half because Airbnb blasted our event to everybody in the city. And that's the big reason why you should be interfacing with them. It's so you can help yourself. You guys have the power. They can do that piece for you. And they'll be allies at times. I mean, again, focus on yourself, focus on the needs that your community has. The platforms, think of them as kind of like air support. Like you guys are separate, but they'll be able to help you. And one thing with that you mentioned, they most likely won't be able to donate to your cause, but that's a good thing, because then if they were to donate to your cause, then you look to the government like, oh, this is a puppet organization just funded by Airbnb. This is Airbnb trying to control city politics, and you lose all of your credibility. So it's actually, like, the platforms know this, And we realize this as well. So that's why that doesn't really happen. So don't try and get them to donate. Now, if you do an event, they'll pay for drinks. They'll pay for some food. Hey, that's not bad. But that's the value, getting the audience together. And then you can fundraise that way. Do you see what I'm saying? So that's the big reason why platforms are useful. But hey, if you're in a small size city, you really don't need them. So one less step.
And on that note, here's what we have to lose. The reason why we're doing this video is because if people don't come together and protect themselves from the negative legislation, the doors will close and people go out of business. And, you know, it's funny, I was going to think Atlanta would be a prime bad example to give. And you said that Atlanta and Oahu are roughly the same. Atlanta's one of my favorite stories about how it hits the fan and then people lose.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate. And I want to say too, this doesn't mean anything bad on the communities there, and I still have hope for them. But what we want to do is use these as learning experiences for you guys, because an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Mm-hmm. So with regards to Atlanta, you know, and I want to say that they really, you know, I believe that they put a lot of effort into it. It just wasn't, you know, going into the right places. And what basically happened there is it's a very similar situation to what we've talked about before. A city proposes a ban that's basically going to take out 70% or more short-term rentals. The way that this was happening was that they're taking them out of the residential areas and only having them in the commercial areas, which make up about, let's say, 20% of the housing stock there. So a lot of the short-term rentals are in residential areas there. Those all, you know, would be going away. And basically, that was an example of the strategies that I just mentioned not being enacted in enough time in the right way. So there were things where they went the legal route instead of going the lobbyist route, which then caused animosity between the community and the government. And let's say that's the opposite of what, you know, is the solution, right? What you want and what's fantastic is having the community connect with the government. What's horrible is having the government feel like they have animosity, like it's personal, like, oh, you guys are trying to fight us like that? Oh, okay. We're not going to talk to you without our lawyers. And basically that's what happened in that situation. Legal strategies were brought up and those are starting to be enacted. And then when the lobbying side, when they decided to do those things, it was something where there was a roadblock. They're like, okay, we'd love to meet with you guys, but yeah, we can't talk to you guys without our lawyers. So we're not going to do anything where we have a conversation. We're going to talk to you through our lawyers. And that's never good. Shout out to lawyers, not hating, but I think we all know that's not a good way to go about things, to build a connection. So that was the biggest thing. And, you know, it only takes something like that to really put a wrench into things, because as you're trying to untangle that, the short-term rental ban is being voted on in a matter of a month. Do you see what I'm saying? You know, basically got to the point where things were happening, but it got voted in too late. And then they started working on trying to prevent enforcement. And I think actually, which makes me very hopeful, I know that, you know, it's in play and they have the ability to enforce, but I think there's something that's still holding them up a little bit more. And I want to chime in real quick. Guys, don't think that you can go under the radar when they pass a ban. That used to work in some places, but the platforms are working together with these cities to enforce this stuff. They're required to by law, and they have the capability to do it. Meaning, if you don't comply, then it's not just you'll get a fine mailed out to you. Airbnb has the ability to basically shut your listing off like a light switch. And so that's the situation that, you know, is the most dire for Atlanta right now. And, you know, again, the solution being doing things the right way, getting the lobbyists in order, and making those connections. That would have changed a lot of things with such a short time frame. It's hard. It makes it harder because the time frame is so short. If you make a big mistake, it's hard to come back in time. And then Oahu had a very similar situation, similar type of ban. And on that front, actually, I can go a little bit into Oahu. The difference there was that they used a lobbyist that was paid for by the platforms. I talked about some of the bad stuff, talked about intermediate things, legislation working on being changed. This had to do with the amount of guests that are allowed in a home. Now, Fayetteville, their properties are large. Most of the properties are very large, and the business only can operate if you can get a decent maximum occupancy. Now, we're not talking about a party house. We're talking about sensibly housing families and people in a certain amount of people in rooms.
Yeah, makes sense.
And what they did, again, there's always usually some thought behind these things, not all of the thought that we want, but somebody's there behind the scenes thinking, okay, yeah, I don't know if I really want short-term rentals around like this. So let's just say there was a sly move to have in the regulations that they're proposing. Oh, we're going to limit the guest count, but it's no big deal. Just limiting the guest count, just put it at a nice little cap. And don't quote me on this exactly, but if I'm not mistaken, it was 8 guests. But this is the thing. These houses are very large. In most cases, they're housing 10 people comfortably, meaning where they get beds to sleep on and all those things. That was going to take out about 50% or more of the industry, just because following that rule would not allow these homes to be profitable. Again, they're very large. And again, with regards to the platforms, they have things in place already where they can limit that, meaning you can't put your guest count higher than it needs to be. So people don't think that you can house as many people as you think you can house. And even with that, you're going to get fined if they find out. Why would you want to operate your business where you feel you're not wanted, right? So what happened here was they followed the strategy to a T. They got an association together. And it's a smaller city, so they found a friend of a friend to get them in the room with one of the council members. They explained the situation through that lens, and they had, it was somebody who was somebody like us that had a knowledge of the industry, a good amount of properties, and they were able to get that stricken off of the ordinance. And the ordinance that they did pass was overall pretty good. And another reason why I wanted to bring this up is because they put restrictions in place, but all the folks there that are already operating, it wasn't bothering them, and there's still room to grow. They put limits on the amount of homes that could be operated, but it was healthy. So it allowed for the industry to grow, but it makes it where you don't have to even have that affordable housing conversation. So again, we support regulations. We want it, right? Sure. We want to be a part of the conversation on that, so we get it right.
Yeah, a little bit of red tape is good for the incumbent host community, because if the going gets good, everybody wants a piece of the pie.
Exactly.
And then an influx of host supply can hit, and that can derail hosts. Like, a lot of hosts are running good businesses. If supply doubles without warning,
exactly,
then a lot of hosts are left like, oh, why does my listing not have bookings all of a sudden? So some regulations to stem the rate of growth can keep everyone who's currently hosting safe. And I think that's actually pretty responsible.
And guess what? Learning what we're talking about means that you can get ahead of these things, and you can even go into a city with your knowledge of regulations that, oh, I have a moat here. I can go into this city and I know it's not going to go too crazy. And, again, it's not just about defense. This is about offense. If you want to be, a winner, if you want to really crush it out here, use regulations to your advantage.
Yeah.
We're all about that.
That's good. It's real good knowledge. Some facts.
Man.
Thanks for dropping it all.
I appreciate it. Forged in fire, guys. You know what I mean? Don't give up hope. If I gave up hope, I wouldn't be here chatting with you and helping people out, so.
Well, I mean, that's how this channel typically runs, right? Everything I've done is from trial and error, so by fire for sure.
Yeah.
So now I'm sure there's a place people can reach out to if they have questions, they want to get involved. I guess what would be next steps if they want to work more closely with you, for example?
For sure. So if you want to work more closely with me, it's very easy. Go to strhero.com. We are now a nonprofit. All you have to do is book a call with me. It's free, and that's free of charge. We do not charge for our calls. And you just reach out, book a call, and we'll talk to you about your situation. If you want to support cities like Dallas, cities like Philly, and the other cities in our network that we help stop these bans, you can donate to the STR Hero Advocacy Fund. Again, it's fully tax deductible, and every dollar helps these cities stop these bans. So if you want to do that too, definitely we would appreciate it.
That's cool. Super cool. Put a little note like donation for Dallas. don't spend in Philly. Don't spend in Jersey. Like, Dallas check. Dallas only check.
Hey, that's how Sean would write it in his donation. And I want to shout out Sean because he's not going to say this, but you guys need to know this.
I'm not going to say what.
Exactly. Here we go. Sean has secretly been a supporter of advocacy for years, and you guys probably didn't even know that. And I'm talking about he's donated his time, he's donated his services, he's donated dollars to cities. Like, there's been things where it wasn't even put out there that this had happened. And so, I want to give you a big thank you. Now I gave you a gift that it's actually it's not a gift you necessarily want to wear, you know what I mean? But it's one that's good to hang up. But we really wanted to give you that because you've been a hero to a lot of folks, on the business side, but also on the advocacy side. And, that didn't come from anything, like, you didn't have to do that, and we just really wanted to shout you out for that.
Appreciate that. I'm happy to be here.
Hey,
so
me too.
Aaron, I'm going to put his information in the description of this video naturally. It's the easiest thing. This was a good, fun, bulky video. So thanks for giving us all of your attention this whole time.
Feel free to rewind. We know it's a lot, but we both know how important it is too.
Might be necessary.
Yeah.
And as always, guys, we will see you on the other side.
Peace.